Hey everybody, welcome to Bill Sky the C Guy, and today we're going to talk about something that's different in C when compared to C++ when it comes to data types, and that's strings. In C++, there's this class called string that really makes programming easy. String programming easy. Well, relatively easy, I should say, because there's a lot of functions that you can still execute on strings. But in C, it's quite different. Everything is a function. There is no such thing as a class called string. It's a thing called C strings. And C strings are basically character arrays that you specify that end with a \0. They're null terminated, end with a \0. Now, this is actually how strings are set up in C++ using C strings, which is, like I said earlier, which is an array of chars, but the class hides that from you. One of the benefits of C++. Now, one of the benefits of C is that these functions are very, very fast. It's a very efficient language. It doesn't carry as much baggage. So I personally like the C method better than the C++, just for that, just performance, speed, and small code. So what I think we should do here is let's just do some of the C coding. This isn't going to be a very long video. Let's play around with some of the C coding for C strings or strings, and I don't know, let's get to coding. Okay, so just for ease of programming or ease of setup, I'm going to just set up Eclipse here, or turn on Eclipse, and we're going to start a new project. Now, you can see I have Visual Studio Code installed. You can use that as well. The reason I like to use Eclipse is that you can have multiple files in your source files in your Eclipse project. You don't have to worry about changing any JSON files if you're going to have multiple files in your project, and that's why I like Eclipse. So I'm going to go up to file, and by the way, this is the same on Linux because I have Linux running right here in this demonstration. This is the same on Linux, Windows. It doesn't matter the operating system. So I'm going to create a new C++ project, or actually, wrong, C project, and I'm going to call this, I don't know, C strings. And I always like to say hello world ANSI, turn off release, and just say finish. Now, for those of you who don't know a lot about Eclipse, and I'm going to say open perspective, Eclipse is a developer created product, and it's free. It's a great integrated development environment. Let's go ahead and clean this up a bit. There we go. Okay. All right, so let's create a string in C. You're going to hear me say C++ a lot because when I was teaching just like less than a year ago, everything was C. We didn't do anything, or everything was C++. We didn't do anything in C, but I always like to teach C along with C++ because there's tons, I mean, there's billions and billions of lines of code out there in C, and it's still used for developing operating systems and low-level development. If you don't want to develop in assembler code, you're going to develop in C. C++ is more of a business application. I guess that's arguable, but it's a higher level language. There's more abstraction, so you really need to learn C, and that's I think why you're here. So in C, to create a string, you simply say char, and then you give it the name. I don't know. Let's just say my name. And then you specify the square brackets. Now, if you're not familiar with arrays in C, it's exactly the same as arrays in C++, and I will have a link to my C++ array video that you can go ahead and look at that. I'm not going to reproduce that video in C because the languages are so closely related. Again, C++ comes from C, so anything you can do in C, you can do in C++. So I'm going to specify char my name, and I'm going to give it a length. I'm going to say 32. Oh, let's make it 64. And then put a semicolon. Now, if you remember a moment ago, I said something about null terminated. When you create a C string, when you create an array of chars, the last character, the 64th, position 63, because remember array started 0, so position 63 will be a \0. And you can check that by debugging your application, actually looking at the memory. So you don't have to worry about that. However, the maximum number of characters that you're allowed to put into the C string is 63, not 64, because if you put in 64, it's going to it's going to overlay that \0. Now, why is that important? Well, the \0 is the stop sign. It says this is the end of the C string. Because if you remember, maybe you don't, but memory is just a big long line. Think of memory as just like a single line of billions and billions of bytes, billions and billions of characters. And you know where the my name starts. There's an address for that C string. There's an address for that array. That's the starting point, but where's the ending point? There's no address for the ending point of that array. So how do they do that with strings, both strings and C strings? How do they do that? They put a \0. That's the stop sign. That means all the functions that are going to process C strings are going to stop when it sees a \0. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to give that C string a value. Now, one way I could do that, I could simply do it this way. I could simply say, my name, 64 bytes long, Bill Sky Computer Guy. And that'll actually build. Let's go ahead and build that. Okay, and it gave me a warning that I never used it. That's fine. So that's one way of doing it. But how do we move data in there? What if we have the user type something in? Now, if you're interested in that, take a look at my printf and my scanf videos that are coming up shortly on how to do that. But we're going to hard code it here. So how do you actually put data into a C string? Well, I'm going to say my name equals Sue Smith. And I'm going to save and build that. And let's see what happens. And we get an error. It says that you can't put a C string into the address of a C string. What am I talking about here? This is a C string. This is a string that ends with \0. You don't see the \0, but the compiler puts it in there. So I'm trying, but this is an address. Unlike in C++, it's not a string class. It is simply an array. It's an address to an array. So you can't do that. So in C, to copy one string to another, you have to use the function strcpy. You say the destination, which is my name, and then you give it the source. So what this is going to do is this is going to copy Sue Smith into my name. Now, before we do that, let's go ahead and just say put s my name. And then after we do it, we're going to say put s my name. And the reason we're doing that is so I can show you that it's actually working as I'm instructing you that it's working. So let's go ahead and build that. Looks good. Again, we're not really using that. And let's run it. And there we go. So the program says hello world. That's what this put s is all about. Then we say put s my name. My name should be Bill Sky the Computer Guy. There it is, Bill Sky the Computer Guy. And then I copy Sue Smith into my name and I print my name and it's now Sue Smith. Now, notice that neither one of these C strings, neither one of these are 64 bytes long because my array is 64 bytes. How does it know to stop printing after the last Y in Bill Sky Computer Guy or after the H in Sue Smith? It's because of that \0. That's why that's there. It is a stop sign, says stop doing whatever that is function that you're using, in this case strcpy, and also put s. It only prints those values up to and not including the \0. And let me show you that. I'm going to actually put a \0 here. I'm going to copy Sue \0 Smith, and let's see what happens now when I print the name, my name, when it has Sue Smith in it. And you can see it just printed Sue. It printed Sue and a space. You can see how I highlighted it there. You can see the space at the end. And that's because the stop sign of \0, I artificially put it into the center of the name. So that's why it's so important. So that's how you copy one C string to another. Now I could have done something like this. Let's do some of this. Let's now concatenate one string to another. Let's create another C string. I'm going to say her name. And they don't have to be the same size. They can be different size. Now you know my wife's name. Okay. And I always like to build to just make sure that I haven't typed in anything weird. I really don't like to use all of the, I don't like to see all of these warnings. So before I would actually do anything here, I would go in and fix, by do anything, I mean release the product. I would go in here and get rid of all of these, warnings. But for today, we're not going to mess with it. Okay. Okay, so I've got my name, I've got her name. I can also use, instead of using a literal C string like I did there, I could just say strcpy, destination, my name. The source is her name. And then I'm going to say put as my name. And I did something wrong here. Oh, forgot a capitalization there. And you can see my name now has Sue Sky Bill's wife. So there you go. So that's how you copy one string to another. Remember, the left one is always the destination. The right one is always the source. Now, how do you concatenate two strings? Well, if you remember in C++, you would say string equals string plus string 2. You could do something like this. You could say string plus equals string 2. You can do all that in C++. Makes it really, really simple. However, how do you do it in C? You just call a function. There's a function called strcat. I'm going to say catenate onto the end of my name, her name. Now, if the destination array isn't big enough to contain both of them, it's just going to chop it off at the 63rd position, and then it's going to put a \0. So let's see how that works. Okay, so it went ahead and it concatenated it. Notice it didn't put a space in between the two strings. It just concatenated it. You can use variables. You can use, I could also create a literal here. So I'm just going to copy it. And I'm going to say, so there. And you can see so there. So we haven't used up all the 64 characters yet, or I should say 63 characters, because the last one is always going to be a \0. Okay, so that's how you would concatenate one string to another. You would clear them. So how could we now compare two strings? In C++, you would say if string 1 is less than string 2. Do something, else do something else. Or you could say less than, you could say equals to, you could say not equals to. The reason why you can do things like that in C++ is because the string class has overloaded the operators, in this case not equals, and that's one of the really neat things about C++, but that feature is not available in C. So how would you compare to see if two strings were equal? Well, what you would do is you would use the strcmp function, and the return value for that function is how you would compare them. So let's do one for equality. So I'm going to say if strcmp my name, her name is equal to 0. So if the return value of strcmp is equal to 0, the strings are equal. So I'm going to say put s, my name is equal to her name. So that's for equality. What about less than? I'm going to say if strcmp my name, her name. Now this is less than equal to -1. I know the syntax is weird compared to C++ and other languages like Python or Java. So strcmp, so what this is doing is it's saying if my name is less than her name, the value returned will be -1. So I'm going to say put s, my name is less than her name. And how about greater than? It's going to be a positive one. You could put a plus in front there. So if the comparison is equal, if they're equal, you're going to get a 0. If the comparison is that this is less than this, if the destination is less than the source, you're going to get a -1. If the destination is greater than the source, you're going to get a +1. Let's go ahead and save and build that and see if we get anything out of this. Oh, what do we got here? Oh, forget my semicolons. And actually, boy, what have we got here? It's really not telling us anything. Let's make sure the program ended correctly. I always like to put that program ending just to make sure that it ended. Okay, so it worked. However, I'm not getting anything here. So my name, her name, my name, her name, my name, her name. They're not equal. My name is not less than her name. My name is not greater than her name. I mean, one of those has to be right, correct? Let's go ahead and debug this. So I'm going to put a breakpoint right here on the first if, and let's debug this. I'm going to switch to the debug perspective, and let's see how this goes. Okay, so it prints Bill Sky, it copies them, copies them, copies them, copies them. Wow, so probably what I would do here, let's see what we got. I'm going to print both of those. So I'm going to say put S before the comparisons. I'm going to put S, my name, put S, her name. Let's see what the values are. And let's go back to the C perspective. Save and build it. And now let's just run it. Okay, so before the perspective, it's Sue Sky, Bill's wife. Sue Sky is Bill's wife, so there. And then it says Sue Sky, Bill's wife. So this substring right here is obviously smaller than this substring. Let's make sure that we've got our if statements correctly. And let's do one other thing. I'm going to go here and I'm going to say, how do I want to do this? I'm going to say printf, and again, if you don't know about printf, that's okay. I'm going to say %u, comma, strcmp, my name, her name. And let's put a \n there. So I'm going to print the result of that. Okay, looks like it built okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and run it. So really the syntax isn't -1 or 1. What the syntax really should be is that if it's less than 0, that means that the left is less than the right. And this is actually kind of nice because if it's greater than 0, that means the left is greater than the right. So you can kind of look at this like think of that as an arrow. It's an arrowhead. It's saying this is less than this. This arrowhead means that this is greater than this. That's kind of a way that I remember it. Now, I have seen programs where they're looking for +1 or -1. Oh my God, you can see that that just is not the case. That 83 means how many characters did we move forward to compare the two. And it really, the -1 and the +1 just doesn't work. So it really should be less than 0 or greater than 0. And let's go ahead and build it and run it. And you can now see that my name is greater than her name. Here's my name, here's her name. So that was kind of a neat little thing that we went through there. to show you just how to debug it, to kind of debug the code a little bit, see what the values were, and to find where our error was. So that is how you would compare two C strings. Now, one other thing I would like to do here with you is actually show you in Eclipse. Now, every integrated development environment has a debugger. It has the ability to take a look at your data in memory. Let's take a quick look at that in this. So I'm going to go ahead, and I have this breakpoint right here on the if statement. I'm going to go into debug, and Eclipse is going to ask me, do I want to view the debug perspective? I'm going to click on remember because I always want to automatically switch to the debug perspective. Now over here on the right side of the debugger, and I'm going to press the continue button, and that takes me down to the if statement. So it executed all of the statements up to and right before that if statement. And I want to take a look at this data. So over here on the right, you can see that I have the variables tab. Now if I don't see the variables tab there, I can go up here to, I think it's window, is it show view and variables. So I can go to window, show view, variables, and there it is. So if you don't see that, that's one way to do it. But the program has to be running in debug mode before you do that. And notice it's in the case of my name, it's a char 64. This right here, this funny hexadecimal number that you've got, 0x7FFF, whatever it might be, that's the actual address in memory of the very first character in that array. Well, I'm going to expand this, and you can see every single character, one character at a time. You can see the array position, and I'm going to scroll down, and what we're looking for is that we're looking for that \0, and there it is. So there is the \0. So my name is, that's what I'm looking at right here, right? My name, yes. My name has 46 characters, because remember, the 0 is the first position of any array, so it's 45 plus 1 is 46. The 47th position, or the 46th index position, is a \0. Now in Eclipse, I can actually change that. I can go in there and change that if I want. I can hard code that stuff. And now when I print it, it'll show that updated value. So the debugger actually lets me do that to test things out. And then I can press the step over, step over, step over, and you can see the code going. So the debuggers are very, very useful. So there you go. Simple strings called C strings in the C language. A little bit of an introduction on that. You can find even more information on it in tutorials, points, Geeks for Geeks. But that's pretty much all you need to get started with C strings, get started with strings in C. If you don't understand arrays, go ahead and take a look at the arrays link video that I've got, or the link to the arrays video that I have on this description of this video, and hope to see you at our next C video.